Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Southern Oregon Weather Weekend Update. We'll start by taking a look at our current conditions and get into our short-term forecast. We'll also look at teleconnections, which could point to our weather for the end of the month. And then I want to talk about what I think the beginning of May is going to look like. So first, satellite imagery from NOAA shows a combination of snow and some puffy cumulus clouds over the mountains. Some of this is snow, and some of this white is clouds. We're not seeing any showers from these clouds today. However, that could possibly change tomorrow, and we'll get into that in a bit. Here you can see the current conditions at Rogue Valley International Airport. We got into the low 70s today. This green line here, the border between the green and the red, that's the normal high for the date in Medford. So you can see yesterday we were just a little bit above normal. It was slightly cooler. But here with this warmer day today, we're going to be once again above average. And that will mean we've been above average for nearly every day of the last 2 weeks. So quite a change from our cool and wet start to the month. So what can we expect for the next few days? Well, it looks like some pretty warm weather will continue for the next 2 days, according to the Weather Channel. However, there's a slight chance of showers for tomorrow. I suspect that will mainly be over the mountains, over the Siskiyous and the Southern Oregon Cascades. There could be some convection that produces a couple showers there, but not really expecting very much for the valleys at all. Our main chance of rain is going to arrive on Wednesday, and here you can see the WPC has up to 1/4 of an inch for areas of the Rogue Valley and 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch for the Southern Oregon Cascades and Siskiyous. We're going to see showers because here you can see this ridge. It loses amplitude, it flattens and moves south, allowing some storm energy to ride across the top of the ridge. You can see we transition into a more zonal flow by Wednesday afternoon. So that's going to allow some showers to move through Wednesday and possibly into Thursday as well. Here's the Canadian model showing just a slight chance of showers tomorrow. Once again, not really expecting very much. Followed by the main event on Wednesday. And it looks like showers will generally arrive Wednesday morning and maybe continue into the afternoon. Most of the shower activity will be north of our area. The heaviest precipitation will be north of our area, but I think there's a good chance for the valleys to maybe see a 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch on the high side. So, after our showers move through midweek, what can we expect? Well, it looks like our warming and our drying trend will return. So here you can see the ridge starts out pretty flat, but builds and then remains over our area through Sunday of next week. So a week out, this ridge is still affecting our area. You can see some troughing trying to move closer to the coast, but most of the models want to keep this troughing too far north and west to really bring any showers into our area. And the trend on the models has been to build the ridge more strongly and keep it there and shift this trough farther northwest into the Gulf of Alaska. So why are we going to see this pattern? I have to be honest, I'm not super happy with the way the models are taking things versus how the teleconnections look. There's kind of a loose correlation, but sometimes the teleconnections just don't line up that perfectly with the models, and you kind of have to see which side will win. Will the teleconnections win, or will the models prove to be more accurate? Regardless, there is some general support for the models in the teleconnections, so we'll get into that. Here's the PNA. The models have really been struggling with what to do with the PNA over the last few days, and I think that's contributed to the changes in the model runs, because the PNA is such an important driver for weather in Southern Oregon. A couple days ago, the models had the PNA being neutral for this time period, maybe even a little negative, now strongly positive. And a positive PNA at the end of April into May gives you this kind of a look with ridging over the top and maybe into the western part of the U.S., this troughing offshore and then troughing along the east coast. So you can see that agrees reasonably well with the trends on the models in the last 48 hours to build more ridging here over the top and over the west, and to increase troughing over the east and in the Gulf of Alaska. So that agrees reasonably well with the way the PNA is going. We can also look at our Madden-Julian oscillation, which is forecast to remain in phases 2 and 3 over the next 2 weeks. And that's a signal for ridging for warmer and drier weather over our area, but kind of for the wrong reasons. The models want to keep our area warm and dry because they're building a ridge over the desert southwest that's blocking most of the storms and shifting them up into the Gulf of Alaska. The MJO signal here would suggest that it's ridging in the Gulf of Alaska that keeps our weather warm and dry. So the MJO isn't lining up super well with the PNA signal and the models. Regardless, though, there is maybe an indication here that as we move into May and it goes into the null phase here, that we could maybe see a cooler and wetter start to May. So when we look at our AAM, we also see some reasonable agreement, probably the best agreement with the models of these 3 teleconnections. Here's the signal we're getting currently for April. This is actually the correlation with a negative AAM. We're not quite there. We're more in a neutral state, but we're certainly not in a strongly positive state anymore. A positive state would favor ridging off the coast and troughing in the central part of the U.S. But now that the AAM has dropped, I think we're seeing more of a negative signal, actually, where we have this trough in the Gulf of Alaska, but too far offshore to really affect our weather, and this ridging over the 4 corners really pushing storms into British Columbia and preventing them from reaching southern Oregon. So I actually think this is a pretty good fit with the models right now. As we move into May, though, once again, there's another signal that we could maybe start May a little bit cooler and wetter than average. Here you can see the AAM is forecast to trend positive over the first week of May, and here's the signal we would get. This ridging moves north toward Alaska, and here we actually have a signal for troughing over the western United States. So interesting to note that a couple of the teleconnections are suggesting a cooler and wetter start to May. Also, when we look at the Canadian ensemble at the very end of its range, 16 days out, for May 5th, here's the signal for troughing showing up on the ensemble as well. And this ridging shifts into the central part of the U.S. So there's an indication that from the teleconnections and the ensemble that we could see some cooler conditions to begin May. So to recap, we do have warm and mostly dry weather until Wednesday, maybe a slight chance of showers over the mountains tomorrow afternoon. But it looks like Wednesday and possibly into Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning, we could see some showers, followed by, once again, a warming and drying trend. So I know we've been highlighting this cooler and wetter period to end April for a while now. It looks like that's going to come, but it could just be delayed a week or two until the beginning of May. It looks like when we take a look at our teleconnections that we could see significant warmth and pretty dry conditions continue through the end of April, followed by a possible cooler start to May. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to set your notifications for the next update. I may not post a midweek update, but if you set your notifications, you'll find out exactly when a new update is available. And please leave a comment if you enjoyed the forecast.